One Night at the Opera. Chapter 6. The magic of the opera house was mesmerizing. Some of its halls completely refused to obey the laws of nature. For example, they were not subject to time. I knew for sure that it was night. But the next hall brought me to a daytime setting. There, elaborately dressed sorceresses in masks were dancing. This entire event could easily be called one grand masquerade ball. But here's the problem, no one has given me a mask yet. Will they? Fantastic women in headdresses that grew together with the mask, they also had horns on them. I was enchanted by the softly sounding music, and could not go further without devoting at least a little time to the dance. It was as if some magical force was drawing me to join in, to enter the circle of dancers and spin with them. Which I did without thinking too much. One of the women obligingly stood up with me as a partner, and we waltzed. I smelled the scent of her perfume, and everything seemed so chaotic. I saw the world around me through some kind of solemn veil. Everything around was covered with a veil of palace solemnity, a kind of veil of luxury covered my nose. And everything seemed royally beautiful. But most likely it did not seem so, but most likely it was. But how can one distinguish reality from fantasy in this world of continuous illusions? Mirrors are installed at the edges of the hall. But our full reflections are not visible in them, only ghosts flicker here and there. I noticed that at the end of the hall there was a solemn altar. Everyone who danced past it froze for a moment and bowed. We did the same, at first. But then the lady led me to the altar, and told me to linger there a little longer. On this table, among the expensive jewelry and gilding, there were 2 golden goblets. She gave me one, took the other for herself, and we drank a goblet of wine each. That's all we needed. My head was spinning from dancing, so now the wine would spin even more. Oh well, let it be. We continued dancing in this illusory dance. Sometimes it seemed to me that the figures around me were blurring not in the mirrors, but in reality. Once, out of the corner of my eye, I saw as if one of them had blurred, scattered, and turned into a cloud of butterflies. The butterflies scattered and began to flutter under the entire ceiling. And then they gathered back together, into the same figure, and it continued dancing as if nothing had happened. As soon as I begged for it to stop, the dance moved to another level. From the daytime environment, I was again plunged into the night. Someone pulled the curtain off one of the halls, as if the curtain of the doors had suddenly been thrown open, in flight. And I found myself in the hall at night again. Here the masks were dancing again, and I became part of a large masquerade performance. Now the dance became even more twilight, and everything was completely mixed up in my head. I did not understand who I was dancing with, the partners were constantly changing, and I was simply hovering above the floor, spinning and turning. Someone was leading me, or maybe I was leading someone in a waltz. The main thing is not to stop, and then everything will be wonderful. But I did not want to. At the end of the gloomy hall, illuminated by magic lamps, there was also an altar, this time dark. And for a moment it seemed to me that we would drink not wine in cups, but real blood. But no, this is an obsession, it just seemed to me. There is nothing terrible in this wine. Or maybe it is champagne. I can no longer tell the difference. The tempo of the dance would pick up and then slow down. We had already changed several night halls, and the main test for me was not to fall asleep completely. Although I constantly managed to float to the surface with my consciousness and look around. Figures in masks, only figures in masks, not a single uncovered face. Well, let it be so, it makes no difference to me. But how to stop, how to free myself from the dance? That was the question that tormented me. One time, I finally fell asleep for a few minutes. I fell completely into a drowsy, sleepy state, and saw how the colors around me became brighter. Everything sparkled, but separated and split into separate fragments of a mosaic. The world around me turned into a kind of kaleidoscope. And in this kaleidoscope I felt unusually cozy and calm. As if there were no and could not be any problems at all. Everything continued to spin, layering on top of each other with new layers of a dream. And through my sleep I heard riddles sounding in my head. In the moonlight, to the sounds of the night, shadows swirl, as if in flight. What kind of magic is this? The wind whispers, the leaves rustle, to the sounds of nature they swirl. What kind of magic is this? Magic threads, woven in rhythm, lead us to a world where there are no boundaries. What kind of miracle is this? To the sounds of music, in the light of candles, figures move, as if in a fairy tale. What kind of secret is this? A magic circle, where every step is a story told without words. What kind of art is this? I saw 5 masks flashing in my inner and then outer eyes. And 5 lines of riddles reached my inner ears. The answer seemed so obvious, I knew it. I took part in it. It's a dance, after all, nothing complicated. But for some reason my tongue refused to pronounce the words. They brought me to the altar and made me drink wine again. And then everything happened, and it all worked. I answered, dance. And the delusion immediately fell apart. I literally saw a crumbling kaleidoscopic mosaic, these mosaic pieces, falling everywhere straight from the clear space. As if paint was falling from the ceilings of the hall, or maybe these were falling autumn leaves. After all, autumn is a very possible outcome now. And with each moment my head became clearer, the rotation stopped. I saw before me more and more clearly. Then, the women around began to peek out furtively with their faces. They lifted their masks, some more, some less, and looked at me with mysterious eyes, smiling mysteriously, but saying nothing. I received another glass in my hands, and only one maid of honor who handed it to me said to drink, no longer fearing anything. I took another sip, and it turned out that it was not wine, but champagne. From it, my head became finally and truly crystal clear. I was led out of the dark dance halls and for some time we again meandered through the theater corridors. And then I found myself again in the place where I had been left for a new, even more amazing little adventure.